Really appreciate everybody joining us for today's training session. My name is Michael Adamczyk. I am a member of Microsoft's training team based out of our Washington, D.C. hub. And like Nora said, today we are going to go over a basics Teams course with a little bit of an overview of our Office portal thrown in there as well. Right. Now, today's training is inside of this Microsoft Teams meeting. Hopefully, everybody is at least somewhat familiar with the platform of Teams meetings, just so that you're comfortable for today's training. But if not, no worries. I'm going to briefly review our meeting controls that are available. Keep in mind that your microphones and cameras have been automatically disabled, just so that we can have a clean recording in today's session. So that being said, to anybody just joining in, we are going to be recording this session so you can access it again later. Now here's a brief overview of what controls we have available. Again, your microphones are currently disabled and you will not be able to share your screen as well. Towards the end of today's session, if we have time, we will go ahead and enable these things so that you can unmute your mics to ask your questions during the training, or at the end of the training, excuse me. But if you do want to ask during the training, feel free to open up your meeting chat. So that's going to be this speech bubble icon here. It's going to open up a panel on the right-hand side of your screen with these chat options down below. You can always feel free to ask your questions there. I am joined today by Crystal. She is a Microsoft trainer like myself, and she'll be able to help answer questions inside that meeting chat today. All right, so here's a brief agenda of what we're going to be covering in our training session. We are going to start out in our Office portal. This is an easy way for us to access all of our M365 applications, including Microsoft Teams. So we're going to kick it off there, get an idea of what we have access to in that environment. Then we're going to head over to Microsoft Teams and briefly go over the different ways we can navigate that application. Once we're familiar with the way Teams looks, we're going to start creating our first team and working inside of our teams and channels. We'll move over to starting our chats within Teams, and then we'll briefly cover Teams meetings more in depth as well. Right. Again, like I said, at the end of our presentation today, we'll try and leave some time for Q&A, just in case anybody wants to come off of mute and ask those questions, but otherwise, feel free to use that meeting chat. So we do have a lot of information to cover, so I'm going to head right into our live demonstration. We're going to start out just by opening up our web browser today. So you're actually going to see here just my in private browser window, right? So I'm using in private browser just so I'm not accidentally sharing any of my own private information here, but you can just open up your standard web browser. We do recommend, especially if you're going to be accessing Microsoft Teams in the web browser, we recommend using Microsoft Edge that is built into your Windows device or using Google Chrome. Those are going to be the best web browsers to access the application. Okay. So we're going to start off by accessing our Office portal that is easily accessible by going to our address bar here. I'm just going to start typing out our portal.office.com. All right, this is how we can easily get to that Office portal. This is the URL that I like to use. You can also just go to www.office.com. You can sign in there. I find this is going to be a little bit faster. It brings us right to our sign-in screen. This is my preferred way of accessing it. Every once in a while, organizations may have their own URL that they use to access that Office portal. So if portal.office.com does not work for you, feel free to ask someone within your org how you can get to that Office portal. For now, I'm just going to hit the Enter key on my keyboard to head over to that Office portal. As you'll see, it's going to bring me directly to my sign-in page. So I actually have some credentials stored in my clipboard here, so I'm just going to paste them in. I'm going to be using a demonstration account today. You'll be adding your own credentials, just your email address to this space so you can sign in. Let me go ahead and apply my password as well. Click that sign in button. It's going to ask if we want to stay signed in. I generally select yes, so I always have easy access to my M365 applications. Every time I head into my web browser, it's not going to do anything here in my in private browser, but I'll go ahead and select yes anyway. So this is essentially what our Office portal looks like once we get inside. It may look very slightly different inside your own organization, right? The layout may look just very slightly different, but for the most part, it's going to look just like this. Now, we're going to start out by learning the different options we have available here. We're going to go to the top right-hand corner, right, where we see my profile picture. I'm going to select that briefly just to showcase. As I said, I am signed in using a demo account today. My name is not Kara Coleman here, but that is the account that I'm using. Kara is not a real person. She is just a fake user that we've created. We have some content already populated in her M365 environment. It's going to make it a lot easier to go through our training today. So when you sign into your own Office portal, you should see your own name listed in this area. You'll see your email. And if you selected a profile picture, that would be listed here. If not, it would just have your initials. All right, now next to our profile picture, we have this question mark. This is our help icon. I like to show this right away because after today's training, if you still have any questions, this is a great resource that's available for you. You can search through a variety of different help articles built directly into our Office portal. Right. Next to that, we have our settings, so we can adjust kind of what our Office portal looks like, right? Up top here, we have some different themes I can apply. You can see them change at the top of my screen. I can view some more if I'd like to. I also like to select my dark mode. I am working on my computer majority of the day, and some of that white light can be bothersome, so I like to turn on that dark mode. For the sake of our training today, I'll leave everything at our default. Next to that, we have this little icon. This is going to give us a snapshot of our Outlook calendar and our Microsoft To Do, right? So if I select that here, you'll notice it starts to load up Outlook. These are all of the meetings on my Outlook calendar that I have currently available. It's just a brief snapshot. I don't have too many features available here. I can always go directly into Outlook or into Microsoft Teams to see what meetings I have available. But this is a quick place where I can get a brief look. I can also go to another tab at the top here, look at To Do. These are my personal tasks that I have assigned to myself here in M365, right? We can simply add tasks here to set reminders for myself. I could also access the To Do application separately, just like we could with Outlook, right? We're not going to go too deep into that in today's training session. Let's close out and head along the top of our screen still. We're going to talk briefly about our search bar. This lets us search for anything that we have access to here in our M365 environment. So if I click inside, you'll notice it gives me suggestions for different applications, different files that I have, different people that I work with, SharePoint online sites, right? Anything that we have access to throughout all of M365 will be easily found here. Right, now continuing to the left, we're going to see this little icon in the top left-hand corner. You're going to see this again when we head over to Microsoft Teams. This little icon will remain in that top left-hand corner for any of our M365 web applications, right? That includes our Office portal here. Now, if I select that icon, it's going to give me a drop-down menu where I can access different apps. So I can head on over. We're going to focus a lot on Teams today. We can go over to Microsoft Word or OneDrive, right? This is all easily available no matter what we're in. So when we head over to Teams later on, you'll see this same icon in the top left-hand corner. It's just a quick way to navigate around our environment. Now, specifically within our Office portal, we have another way to open up these applications. These are going to be listed down the left-hand side of our screen. Right at the top left, you should see Word, Excel, and PowerPoint above this little line. They always remain at the top as they are our flagship Office applications. But then underneath, we're going to see a few other apps like our Outlook, our OneDrive, Microsoft Teams, again, the focus for today. If I use my scroll wheel on my mouse, I can actually scroll down a bit further and see some more applications I may have access to. Right. Now, these are going to populate based on frequency of use. So not every application you see here is going to be directly available to you. You're going to have to access that application in another way before it starts to appear on the left-hand side here. This is just kind of our quick menu where we see our recent apps. Right. Now, we can access all of our apps either from that app launcher that we just saw. We can see some more here or go to our all apps view. We get a nice long list of everything available. Or if we go to the very bottom left-hand corner of our Office portal, we can select all apps and we get that list here as well, right? Again, this is a demo environment. Everything you see populated here may not specifically be accessible by you, but today's session is mostly just going to focus on Teams anyway, and we at least see that here. Right. Let's briefly head back. I'm actually going to scroll back up and hit this home icon to bring me back to that first home page where we first signed in. And you may have noticed right away that we have some files listed here on this home page. So this is just kind of a snapshot into any cloud stored files in our environment. So The first tab we have is all. This is essentially everything that we have access to, any of our own files, anything that's been shared with us, right? We can scroll down and see all kinds of different files here. It's not really very organized. I tend to like to access these files either directly in Teams or perhaps from my OneDrive or a SharePoint site, right? But it is an easy way to start seeing what we have access to. We can change our tab at the top so I can even see things that I have recently accessed, all right? So it looks like I've been working inside this notebook most recently on the 7th, all right? But we can go back in time and see everything that I've been working on. If I go over to shared, these are going to be files that are not my own. I'm not the owner of these files, but they've been shared with me from another location, right? So these generally belong to other people, or they're in some kind of shared cloud storage and that access was granted to me. Finally, we have our favorites. These are going to be any files or content that we choose to favorite. That can be done from any of these other menus. So for example, if we go back to all here, let's take this Word document. We're going to click on the ellipsis on top of that Word document, and we have that add to favorites option. So that'll go ahead and throw it on that list for us to easily access. So that is just a brief overview of our Office portal here, but we do have a lot more content we want to talk about directly inside of Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to open up that application. Right? Using what we just learned, we can go over to the left-hand side of our screen and select that Teams app from here, or we can open up all apps from the bottom left, or we can open up our app launcher from the top left. Doesn't matter, it's all going to do the same thing. It's going to open up Microsoft Teams in the web browser version of the application. So let's select that. You'll notice we have a new tab available where Teams is going to load in for us. Now, if you do use Microsoft Teams in the desktop application, that is perfectly fine as well. The web version and the desktop version do look pretty similar. There may be a few minor differences between the two. Uh, Here inside our web browser, when accessing from our Office portal, we are, of course, going to be accessing the web version of Teams. But if you do have that desktop version installed, you can always just open that directly from your Windows desktop. Everything that you learn in today's session is going to be applicable here in the web and both in the desktop. Right. Let me dismiss this notification here for now. Now, this is generally what you're going to see when you first access Microsoft Teams. Now, again, this is a demo environment, so I'm already a member of quite a few different teams here. Before we go deeper into what this all means, we're going to give a brief tour of the user interface. So we're going to go start again in the top right-hand corner. Once again, we do see our profile picture here. As we start moving to the left, we see a search bar, we see our app launcher, different apps listed down the side. Notice that Teams does look somewhat similar to our Office portal, at least in layout. Right. So in this top right-hand corner, let's select my profile picture here. We can see I'm still signed in as Cara Coleman. Because I signed into my Office portal with my M365 credentials, I used my email to sign in. Any application that I access from that Office portal will automatically be signed in for me. So that's one reason I love to use that Office portal. I don't have to sign in multiple times all over the place. All right. Underneath my profile picture, you're going to see this status icon, right? And you can see a description of that status listed over to the right. So we can see that I myself am currently listed as being in a meeting. Now, this status is going to change based on what I'm doing inside of Microsoft Teams. In this instance, it lists me as in a meeting because I have a meeting on my calendar that I've currently accepted and I'm expected to be in. So it's going to automatically change my status for me. Now, if I click on this drop-down menu, I can also change my status manually. So I can, for example, select to be set to available. It's going to change that to a green check mark. So now people in my team's environment know my status. They know I'm available, and it may be a good way to get in contact with me. Microsoft Teams is our hub for teamwork in M365, and it is designed with communication, collaboration, and customization in mind. So setting our status here in Teams is very important to that communication aspect. We do want to make sure we are being accurate so people know when they can get in contact with us. Teams does do a good job of setting this status automatically, but again, we can go ahead and manually set that as well. All right, let's move along to our next icon here. These three dots here are ellipsis icon. This is going to always provide us more options throughout all of our applications. You're going to see it in a variety of different locations. We have it up here in the top right. We We have it on top of each of these teams here. When we move to some of our other applications, you're going to see it all over the place, right? Essentially, it just provides you with some more options. I do briefly want to talk about our team settings. I'm going to open up this menu. We're not going to go over all of these settings for the sake of time today, but just know you can customize your experience here in Teams in this settings menu. Right, again, we do have that nice dark theme. That is something that I prefer to use. We do also have a high contrast theme. Makes it a little bit easier to read text within the application. It's a nice accessibility tool here. Again, for the sake of our training, you'll probably be used to that default theme. Right. We can also adjust our notifications here inside of Teams. This is important because the more you start working inside of Teams, you may find you're getting constant notifications from different locations within the app, and it may be a little bit bothersome. You may be getting notifications for things that aren't relevant to your day-to-day work. So I always recommend coming here, going through these settings, and making sure everything is customized to your liking. Let's close out of that for now. Continue along the top. Now we have, again, our search bar. This is going to allow us to search for things specifically that we have access to through Teams. So if I click inside, you'll notice we can look for messages, files, and more. We can also search for the names of people in this area to start chatting with them. All right, we're not going to go through this too in depth today. Just know if you're ever lost within Teams, you're looking for a message that you sent out to somebody before, or maybe there's someone you're trying to get in contact with that you don't frequently talk to, you can always use that search bar. Let's continue along. We have our app launcher still available in the top left. As you can see, we can use that to navigate to different areas. We can select those to open up these apps in a new tab, just like we already saw. Now let's talk about these specific areas within Microsoft Teams. So these are going to be located down the left-hand side. This may sometimes you'll hear referred to as the app bar. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the left rail, right? It doesn't matter what you call it. It just essentially holds the different applications within Teams. At the very top, you'll generally see your activity feed. If I select that, you'll notice that it showcases anytime somebody replies to messages within Teams, anytime someone reacts to your messages, anytime somebody adds you to a team, right? It's essentially just your notification feed. You're going to get a little badge icon on top of your activity feed whenever there's something here unread that you want to come see. Maybe able to force that here. Perhaps not. Yeah, doesn't want to work. But you'll see a little red icon showing you how many missed notifications you have. Now, the next application here are Teams Chat. This is where we will host one-on-one conversations with people in our Teams environment. We can have group chats here, and we also have meeting chats. So this is a versatile application that does allow us to communicate very easily with each other. It's essentially just instant messaging. It allows to cut down on email clutter, right? It's not designed to replace your email, but you can use it to very quickly get in contact with people. Below that, we have the namesake of our application, Microsoft Teams. All right, we're going to spend quite some time here today. Teams are essentially groups of people that are brought together to get work done. And these teams are broken up into different channels for topics, departments, projects, whatever reason you would create those within a team to help get that work done, right? Next down, you may or may not see this assignments application. This allows you to work very easily with your students. You can create assignments, you can send them out to your students, get them back, you can grade them from here, send them back out, right? Very great resource available inside of Teams. Below that, we have our Teams calendar. We'll spend some time here as well. This showcases any meetings that were created here inside of Teams, or actually also inside of Microsoft Outlook. This calendar is going to sync with your Outlook calendar and vice versa, so you can create these meetings wherever you'd like and always have that visibility. Right. Now, I'm a bit zoomed in on my screen to make this content easier for us to see in our presentation today. So you may actually see a few more icons over on the left-hand side. I'm going to pull them up by clicking on this ellipsis icon, but you might just see them readily available. Right. These two applications I want to talk about are our calls application. This may or may not be available here. It essentially allows you to host quick voice over IP calls with people in your environment. Right, essentially works just like a Teams meeting. Right, and then we also have our files application, which allows us to easily interact with our files. We can see anything that we've recently worked with that we have access to, anything that's stored inside of our Teams channels that we have access to, or any of our own personal files in Microsoft OneDrive. Right? You notice we do have the ability to add more cloud storage here. I do believe you have the ability to add Google Drive. That's something you use in your environment that can be added to this space as well. Continuing down the side, we can see different applications that are available to us here inside of Teams, right? You're not going to spend quite as much time here. This allows you to really customize and extend your experience by finding new applications that you have access to and building them right inside of Teams, right? They can be accessed here from that left rail, or you can even add them to an existing chat or an existing Teams channel, right? I'm not going to cover that too much in today's basic training. And below our apps, we have our help icon. If there's anything you take away from today's training, I would recommend learning about this help icon. Is a very powerful tool that shows us different articles and different videos about how the application works. So for example, if I go over to topics here, we're going to see generally a list of different articles that we can use to learn how Teams works, right? Training is going to showcase, I believe, mostly videos here that we can use to learn more about Teams, right? Looks like it's not populating in my demo environment here, but we do have a lot of really great resources in this space. So if you're ever feeling lost with the application, just come over to this help tab. It is very user friendly. We can start clicking around to learn more information. Right. So very bottom icon here is to download that desktop app. If you have that allowed within your environment, you can download from here. It may be downloaded directly to your device from your IT team, right? But that is available down here if that's allowed. All right, so that is our overview of the user interface. Let's start talking more about the specific functionality within Teams. I'm going to head back to our Teams application within Microsoft Teams. All right, we're going to spend a little bit of time here learning about what these teams are used for. So this is the default team selection menu that you'll see when you first open the application. This can be changed using the settings icon here. Right, we can change this to switch our view. You may also see this list view for your teams. Right? It does show those same teams we just saw. Instead of in a grid, they're listed over on the left-hand side, and we can see the different channels within those teams listed here. Right? If you go back to our original view, I'm actually going to do that from my team settings. Right? Under general, we can go back to that grid view. You can instead select any of these teams. Let's take this physical science class team, for example, and we can now access just those specific channels. We don't see anything else listed on the side. It allows us to easily focus on this content, but you can use whichever view works best for you. Now, I do have a variety of different teams that Kara here is already a member of. You may not see any teams here at all if you have not joined any yet, right? So we're going to go over the process of joining a new team or creating your own team. So that's going to be this icon in the top right-hand corner. Right. From here, we can join a team with a team code. This code is generated from within a team by owners of that team. If that is shared out with you, it can be shared maybe in a post in another team channel, maybe in a team's chat, maybe it was shared with an email, maybe you got a flyer or a handout with that code on it. You can always input that code here and use it to join the team. Right. You may also be automatically, generally speaking, a lot of times you are automatically added to existing teams. We can also create a team from here. This is going to depend on your organization's policies, whether or not you are allowed to create a team. Sometimes you are prompted to submit a ticket to have a team created for you. Right. I'm going to show this process because you may have this available. And even if you don't, it's a good idea to showcase this so you get an idea of how a team works. So let's select that icon here to create a new team. You'll notice in our education environment, we do have 4 different types of teams that we can create, right? In a standard non-education teams environment, we only have 2. We have our public teams and our private teams, right? Here in EDU, we have class, PLC, staff, and other, right? All of these teams are essentially private teams. You do have to invite people individually to these teams. Right. A class team is designed, of course, for your class. It does give you more resources designed for that class, like an assignments tab and a class notebook that all of your students can access. And you can go in and share handouts through that notebook and see other students' work. Right. We do have our PLC or professional learning community teams. These are designed for sharing information amongst educators. So multiple teachers can use this PLC team to just share information. We do have staff teams. These are more designed just for working within school administration. You'll likely have teachers join this as well, but it is more designed not really for that collaborative aspect between educators, but more things related to that administration of the school. You have our other teams. These can be created for any other reason. They work very similarly to our other teams here. They can be used for clubs, study groups, after school activities, whatever reason you can think of creating a new team for. That doesn't fall under any of these three categories. Right. For the sake of our training today, we are just going to use that other category as all of these teams do look and operate pretty similarly, right? Really, the class team is going to look the most different with that assignments tab available, but otherwise they are essentially the same. So let's select other for now. When we go to create our team, we're going to provide a team name. This is going to be relevant to whatever content is within the team and who you're going to be adding to that team, right? So we can call it, maybe this was for an after school club. We can go ahead and apply the name of that club here. I'm just going to call this our demo team for today's training session. You can insert whatever name you'd like to this space to understand why we're creating this team. Apply a description down below, right? So this is optional. You don't need to fill this out, but it lets people know what kind of work is being done within the team. And then we can set our privacy. So we have our public teams and our private teams. So we can change that here. These are the only two team types that are available in a standard environment, but you can apply these two types to any of these four teams that are available to you, right? Generally speaking, you'll see more private teams. So we're going to leave this as private. Any team that you list as public will actually be available in this screen behind me. The join or create a team screen where it says to create a team, or kind of behind my window here, it said to join with a team code. All of these other grid spaces can be filled out with existing public teams within your school. All right, we'll go ahead and keep it private for now. That is most common. We'll hit next here. And now we start adding members to our demo team. So we can add whoever we'd like here. We can add other administrators. We can add teachers, teaching aides. We can add students. Everybody who's going to be accessing content within this team is going to want to be added here, right? We can always add more people later on if we want to. This case, I'm going to start searching for people in my environment. So as I start to type here, you'll notice I get a list of different people. It's going to give me kind of a global address list of people in my environment. Notice I have different students within my environment. I have different teachers, all right? We have Bruno here, our IT admin, right? Our principal, right? Everybody is available here. So I'm going to add a bit of a mix here. We're going to add Adele. I'm going to add Arden. We'll go ahead and add our principal, Alan. We'll add Bruno as well, right? We're going to select that add button, and once they are added, we can set permissions for these people. By default, everyone you add to a team will be a member. Members have slightly less permissions than our owners, and owners can control what members of our team can do. As the creator of the team, I'm automatically an owner, but I can take other people here and say, for example, our principal, I want to have some of those more permissions here. Adele is just a student. Perhaps I just want her to be a member. Perhaps I don't want Arden here to have as many permissions either, but our IT admin should probably be an owner as well. Always, always, always have multiple owners to your teams. If for whatever reason you only have one owner and that person leaves the organization or is out for a long period of time or something goes wrong and you're left without an owner to your team, it is going to be very difficult to get a new owner to your team or access any of those administrative permissions. So play it safe, always have multiple owners. I recommend a minimum of 3, but probably more than that. All right, let's close out. And it's going to bring us directly into that team. So if I briefly go to the top left-hand corner, select all teams here, we can now see that new demo team we created in our team view. Right. When we go in, we are going to be met with a blank team that we just created. And this team is made up of a general channel, right? That's all we have available here, but we can add more. Again, these channels are essentially like the rooms within the team that are designed generally for specific topics, departments, or projects, right? So if I go to one of our existing teams here, let's take, I believe this is a PLC team, our Women in Computer Science. We can see the different channels within, and they're designed for specific purposes. So we have a channel specifically for announcements. We can see some of the announcements that people have chosen to post within this channel, right? And we have event planning, so on and so forth. That's why you would build out these channels. Now, these channels are made up of different tabs, and we can see those tabs at the top of our screen. So we have a posts tab, we have a files tab, and we can start to add new tabs as we work. Post tab is where most of your information is going to be shared. It's where you do most of your work within the channel, right? It is essentially just these conversations that you create. So these channel posts, these conversations can all be replied to. So I can come in here and reply to Ashley. I can say, I would, or I can send out that reply, and Ashley is, excuse me, sorry about that. Uh, and that is a weird glitch. So generally, you can just reply to any of these messages here, right? We can also start new conversations. You'll see I created this one back in January. If I go to a new conversation down at the bottom, we can start having a conversation about the work within this channel. Now, any member of our overall team has access to every single one of these channels. So, for example, our demo team, anybody that I added there will have access to any channels that I've chosen to create, right? And then they can come in here and they can reply, they can have a conversation. This is accessible to all channel members. These teams are designed for collaboration, so we have these members able to come in, reply, have their own conversations, right? But things like that can be managed by the owners. Right. So we can send out a new message. Let's just say, uh, hello, thanks for give us some text here. Let's see if it'll send a new channel post. Looks like it does not want to. Let me go back to my demo team that I just created, see if it wants to work here. There it goes. All right. I don't know what was weird with that team, but uh, this is what it looks like to send out a new channel post. We can come and reply to that. We can start more conversations. These show up as threads within the channel that anyone can come in and reply to. Notice we also, underneath our channel post, we have the ability to format. We can apply different formatting options, anything you're generally used to from any word processing application. That's going to be available from here, right? We can also attach files within our channels. So this is a way for us to easily share files out to everybody in our team, right? So if you go to attach a file, there it goes. It's going to give you a few different options. We can browse through any of our recently accessed files. We can access files that have been stored inside of other channels. We can also take a look at our OneDrive for Business, where we may have some personal cloud stored files. And we can, of course, always upload from our local device, right? Anytime a file is shared within a channel post, it is also going to appear over here in our Files tab. Let me go back to a different team here. Let's go to our science department, see if this works a little better. See if we have any files stored within this tab. There we go. So we have a Word document, we have a PDF, looks like PowerPoint, some image files, right? Again, these are going to be accessible to everybody within our team. We can also click on these files and it'll open them right up inside the Teams application. So here I am using Microsoft Word built into Teams without having to ever navigate anywhere else, right? Now other people can open up the same document at the same time, and we can do a feature that's called co-authoring, which is going to allow multiple people to join in and we can edit in real time. If someone else were to click on this document from that channel, I can see whatever changes are being made by them while also applying my own changes. So it's a really great collaboration feature, right? Those permissions can also be adjusted in the back end. Technically, Microsoft Teams uses SharePoint Online for its backend file repository and permissions. So you can always go into SharePoint to adjust those permissions. Again, that's going to be a bit outside the scope of today's session. But those are essentially our options that are available inside of a team. Depending on what kind of team you're using, you may have more available. For example, if I go to a class team, for example, let's go back to physical science here. We have a class notebook available. We can see assignments, grades. We can even access insights to see how our students are doing within the class. So those are exclusive to our class teams, right? And at the top of our different channels, we can always extend our experience with new tabs. So posts and files are available by default, but you'll see in this specific channel, I have a few others that I've added. So I have a tab specifically to store videos in that my students can watch. Right, I can head over to my space and astronomy tab. Looks like this is a Microsoft Stream channel, right? We have different websites that we can apply here, right? If I click this plus icon, you're going to see an idea of what you may have available in your environment to add as a tab. All right. So enough about Teams here. Let's head over to some of our other applications. I do want to briefly talk about our chat options. Right. So like I mentioned, this is going to hold our one-on-one group and meeting conversations, right? These chats are going to remain persistent here in Teams. So for example, over here in my recent chats, I can see I've had a conversation with Adele, right? This is always going to be my conversation with Adele. If I ever wanted to send a new message to her, it's always going to be done here, right? So for example, if I go to create a new chat message, well, we're going to use this icon right here to start a new chat. Right? I can type out Adele's name, select her. It's going to bring me directly to that same chat. I can't start a new conversation. This will always be my conversation with Adele, right? But I do want to showcase a new chat here. So let's instead start a conversation with a fellow teacher here. Let's start talking to Arden, right? So we're going to add him to the space. If we wanted to immediately start a group chat, we can add more names. We're going to do a one-on-one chat for now. When I click down here into the message bar, you'll notice a draft is created with that person. Arden does not know I'm trying to have a conversation with him yet. After I send that first message, it will be solidified. So I can say, hello, Arden, and hit enter, or we can hit that send icon in the bottom right. And it's going to simply send out that instant message and solidify the new chat conversation. Right? These chats work somewhat similarly to our Teams channels, just kind of on a smaller scale. Teams channels are going to have a wider variety of resources available, and it's generally for larger groups of people. But inside my chat with Arden, you'll notice I still have some tabs that I can access at the top of my screen. I can still format my messages. I can still share files very easily from here, right? Now I can turn this one-on-one chat with Arden into a group chat by going to the top right-hand corner and selecting this people icon, right? I can add somebody new. Let's go ahead and we'll do our principal, Alan here. We'll select add, and we now have a draft for that new group conversation. Group conversations are still kind of persistent over here. Anytime I'm trying to talk to both Alan and Arden, it's always going to bring me back to this conversation. Just give us some text to solidify the chat here, right? So anytime I'm trying to talk to Alan and Arden, it will always bring me back to this chat, but I can add more people to an existing group chat. Whereas when I tried to add somebody to my one-on-one chat with Arden, it created a new chat. If I were to add somebody to an existing group chat, it will just add them right here. We can do that using the same icon in the top right-hand corner, right? We can actually see who is all participating in this group chat. I can actually remove people from the group chat by clicking on that X icon. I can also leave it myself, or I can select add people. So if I go to add people, I can add more. Let's go ahead and add Bruno here. Right. We can add as many people as we'd like from this space. I believe the limit for group chats is 100 participants, right? Any more than that, you may want to move over to a team to add more people. I generally don't recommend having a group chat with 100 people in the first place. It's going to be a bit messy. If you're adding more than, I'd say, 20 or so people to a group chat, you may want to consider moving to a team so you have more resources available and it's easier for people to organize things into channels, for example, right? But you can use your discretion for that. When we go to add people to a group chat, we can choose if we want to include the chat history. So if we're not including that history, Bruno will see all new messages that we send out, but he's not going to see anything old. I can include the entire chat history, so Bruno will see that, hey everyone, that I just sent out, and anything from before then, or I can include a history from a customizable past number of days. Maybe I want to see him. I want him to see everything from the past week, but not before then. We'll just go ahead and include that entire chat history, hit add. We'll see the notification that Bruno is now added. Right. A cool feature that's available to our group chats and not our one-on-one chats is the ability to change the name. So if I click on this pencil icon at the top, I can change that name to whatever I'd like, right? Maybe we're working on a project together. Maybe this is a group chat for a specific department or something like that. You can always apply that name here, right? For example, maybe we're working on a specific project together. We'll call this our project team for now, right? Now that is going to change the name for everybody included in that group chat. All right, we can manage our chats over here on the left-hand side by hovering over them, right? And you'll see we get that little ellipsis icon for more options, right? Let's take this group chat here. I can mark it as unread, okay? This is essentially what it looks like when a brand new chat comes in. It's gonna be bold, and we get that little badge icon on top of chat here. You can see how many unread messages we have. You can always take those and mark them as read again. Right, we can pin our chats. That just increases the visibility for ourselves. So if I pin that chat, it's going to appear at the top of my screen. You can have up to 15 chats pinned at the same time. You can click and drag to reorder them. You can't reorder your recent chats. Your most recent chat that comes in is always going to appear at the top of this feed. Right. Let's go back here. You can mute your chats. I find this to be pretty popular when we are working with group chats or meeting chats, as they do have a lot of people in them. They may be having a conversation that's not really relevant for you to have constant notifications for. I do like to mute a lot of my group chats. Make sure that you are still coming in and checking on that chat if it is important and you need to see the information here, but it's just going to stop those notifications from bugging you, right? Just use your discretion as to which chats you are keeping mute. All right. So we do have another option here. Let me go to this. Oh, it looks like I can in this environment. We can also access different options for our one-on-one chats. These one-on-one chats allow us to access different options for that specific person. For example, I can add them to a favorite contact list, and I can also choose to get notified when they are available within Teams. So if you'll remember our status icon in the top right-hand corner, I'm currently set to available. We can see on top of Arden's name that he is unavailable, right? And that's going to populate anywhere I see his profile picture, whether it's here in chat, in Teams, in our calls tab, right? But if he is constantly offline or constantly in meetings and it's hard to get in contact with him, I can set it up so I receive notifications when he becomes available and I can get in contact with him. All right. Now, the last place we're going to spend a lot of time in today is going to be our team's calendar. So let's head over there and talk a little bit about our team's meetings. Now, like I briefly mentioned before, this team's calendar does sync with our Outlook calendar. So anything we create here inside of Teams will also populate on our personal calendar in Outlook. We can also create on that Outlook calendar and it'll populate here. Keep in mind, if you're trying to create a Teams meeting where people can join in, share their audio, share their screen, have a meeting chat, you will need to select a specific toggle to create a Teams meeting within Outlook. Otherwise, you'll just create just a standard meeting, which is more like just a block of time on your calendar without that virtual conference room. It will still appear here inside of Teams. You can still see that meeting, just won't be joinable unless you make sure to select that specific option. But I generally like to schedule my meetings right here inside of Teams. That's where I'm already going to be joining those meetings, but you can use it however you'd like. So I'm going to go to the top right-hand corner and schedule a new Teams meeting. Let's click that icon here. Add a title that is relevant to what's going on here. Maybe this is a class. Maybe we are having our students join us in here so we can have our conversations, share our projects, things like that. You can title it based off that class. You can be scheduling a meeting with your superiors or your coworkers. Just create that title that lets people know in a descriptive way what's going to be discussed within the meeting. I am going to be very creative and just call this our demo meeting today. All right. We can now add required attendees to the meeting. These are people that we do expect to join in. We can just start typing out the names of people here. So for example, as I type the letter A, I can add Arden, who we've been working with. We can add Adele, right? We can add Bruno, right? We can also add optional attendees. So these are people that we want to have the visibility. We want them able to join, but we don't necessarily expect them to. We'll add Alan here. Right. We can then set the date and time for our meeting. So let's schedule this for tomorrow. Do that at 2 p.m. to 3. Right. Now notice we get some suggested times listed underneath. This is based off of everybody's team's calendar. It is going to search to see when people are expected to be in other meetings. It's going to give us a good idea of when people can be available. We can also see underneath their name here of the people we've invited that Arden, Adele, and Bruno are all free during this time period, so it's a good time to schedule the meeting. I think the default schedule I had a few people unavailable. Where was it? 4 p.m. All right, yeah, so now you'll see those change. Adele is actually in another meeting during this time, so it says that she's busy. This may not be the best time to host the meeting. Bruno has a meeting on his calendar he has not accepted yet, so I don't know if he's going to be available during this time or not. So I may want to choose one of these suggested times or try again. I can also utilize our scheduling assistant to get a better idea of when everybody is going to be available. I can kind of see those blocks on their calendars to know when I can schedule my meeting. For example, it looks like 9 a.m. tomorrow is a great time where everybody's free. Let's go back to our details. Notice that that does change for us. We can set recurring or repeating meetings. These are going to hold the same meeting resources, like our meeting chat. It's going to remain the same across all occurrences here. We can add a channel to our meeting. This is very useful if we are creating a class. We can go to that class team, for example, physical science here. Maybe this is our oceans unit class. I can add that channel. It'll automatically invite all of the students within that physical science team. Right. That's a great way to invite people. We can add a physical location if we need to, and we can also type out details, let people know what's going on within. All right, let's send out that invitation. See that populate on our calendar for tomorrow. There's that demo meeting. Let that load in. Now, I did schedule this tomorrow on purpose because I wanted to showcase we can join our team's meetings at any time, right? We can go ahead and click on that to hop in, even though it was scheduled for tomorrow. Okay, navigate away, navigate back. Maybe it'll load in faster. There it is. All right, so I can click on that meeting and hit that join option to jump right in at any time, right? Keep in mind, our students can jump in early as well. This is something that we may want to adjust. A very common ask we have is how do we control how these meetings work? We want to adjust permissions for our students. If we go over to the edit option here before joining the meeting, if we go to this ellipsis option right here, we can access our meeting options. This is where we can better control um, what people can do inside of the meeting. So we can control who can bypass the meeting lobby. I believe many of you were stuck in the lobby before joining this meeting. This is where we can set those permissions and then we can allow people. You may want to set it so that your students have to wait in the lobby so they're not joining that meeting ahead of time, right? You can always come back and disable this when it's about time for that meeting so you don't have to worry about admitting everybody. You have all of the control you need here. Right. Another popular option, choosing presenters within the meeting, right? So by default, everyone inside your meeting will be a presenter, but you may want to change that to be just yourself or specific people, especially if you're having students join that meeting. Anybody who's not a presenter within a meeting is automatically an attendee. Attendees can have their permissions better controlled. For example, anyone who's not listed here as a presenter, I can also disable those attendee mics and cameras, right? We can do that from within the meeting as well. We can take individual people within the meeting and promote them to being a presenter, right? We have all kinds of controls that we can access from here to make sure everyone has the correct permissions. Let's close out of that for now so we can talk very briefly about any controls we have inside the meeting. I did briefly cover our meeting controls so that we were familiar in the current meeting we're in. I'm going to continue without audio because I'm already sharing my audio. You'll want to allow your audio if you want people to hear you inside your meeting. This is if you're joining from the web. If you are using the desktop application, it is going to look slightly different, but you'll have most of the same options. Actually, you'll have more options available in the desktop. Right. This is our lobby view where we can adjust some settings before joining in. I generally recommend joining all Teams meetings muted. You don't know who may be inside the meeting already. You don't want to accidentally interrupt somebody with background noise. You may not be aware of background noise, even if you're not talking. May just be shifting in your chair, maybe noise coming from behind you. You can't even hear. Maybe you're wearing headphones. You don't hear that. Right. I always just recommend joining muted. It's not a permanent feature. Right. So we'll hit join now to jump right in. Right. We have a variety of different options available. We're going to skip past the basics like camera, microphone, our meeting chat. Do you want to briefly talk about our share tray? This is how we present inside of a Teams meeting. We can share our screen this way, right? We can also use any cloud stored PowerPoints, or we can browse for a PowerPoint presentation, right? Or you may have access to Microsoft Whiteboard, which is a collaborative whiteboard space you can use to ink up, draw, add post-it notes that everybody in the meeting can see. All right. Don't have time today to go too deep into those options. I do want to open up the ellipsis for more actions here. This is where you can actually access your meeting recording. So that's going to populate down here. If you have the ability to record, you would select that option from here. To be honest, I'm not sure why it's not populating in my demo environment here, but it's going to be an option in this last segment here, kind of above end meeting. Kind of right here, you'll see the ability to start or end a recording, right? Make sure you let people know inside a meeting before you start recording. Make sure you have that permission to record before you do so, but that'll be available from here. Now, after you do record a meeting, those resources will be located inside the meeting chat. So any recordings would be listed here. All right. Let's close out of this meeting. I see we have about 2 minutes left of our scheduled time. I do apologize. I did want to leave a bit more time for questions, but I will be able to stay on a bit later to answer questions. But for now, I'm going to leave these last 2 minutes for you. If anybody wants to come off of mute and ask your questions, feel free to do so. Go ahead and allow your microphones. Just keep in mind that you are still being recorded.
I can't think of anything. I think one of the coolest features, and I mentioned this over in the chat, I wasn't trying to bother you at any point, but I think one of the coolest features, of course, is when you're doing the screen share, sometimes you can give control of your screen. I found that very helpful, like especially trying to show a teacher something, but I'm not at her school that day. And when the kids were remote, and we do have some kids that are back and forth at home, I thought that was a really cool feature if you wanted to mention something about that.
Of course, I may be able to let me know if you're able to see this little menu at the top of my screen. I believe you can.
I
This is
can. Yes, sir.
all right. This is coming from our current Teams meeting, not my demo in the background, but since I am currently sharing my screen in our Teams meeting, I actually have a red border around my screen. You cannot see that. But when you are sharing your screen, you can hover towards the top and you gain access to this menu. From here, you do have that ability to give control. So if I click on this drop down, we see lovely names of everybody inside our current meeting, and I can give that control to any of you. You can actually control my device. You can actually, we'll see your cursor. It'll actually have, actually, I should be able to give control to Crystal here. Let's see. So if I give control to Crystal, there we can see her profile picture here. We can see my own, and you can see us navigating the same device. Right? So that is a cool feature. She can start clicking on things, do whatever she needs to, right? I had to allow for that control. People can't just steal it from me. People can't just start messing with my meeting while I'm sharing my screen, but you can provide that. So yeah, really great feature.
Yeah, so before, like our IT team would have to take control, but so I thought that was really cool. As a teacher, I could go in there and show another teacher, or I could show students, different things on their computer. Like, oh, you can't get to that. Okay, well, if you give me control of your screen, I can show you where to get to X, Y, and Z really quickly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do we have any further questions or anything else you'd like to see before we close out the session today?
Rebecca, do you have anything?
I do not. I think I am good.
Right. Well, fantastic. I do want to again thank you all so much for joining us today. Obviously, there is a lot more functionality within Teams. This is just a brief overview of the basics of why we're using it, but perhaps we'll be able to do further training sessions with you in the future. You can, of course, always access that help icon. Oh, okay. My control here. The help icon down here in the bottom left hand corner. Great resource available for you to learn more about the application. I always recommend just playing around with it. There's probably not too much damage you can do. If there is, your IT administrators will probably keep things managed, but be a little careful, but experiment a little bit. See what you can do within Teams and make sure you're learning that way. But otherwise, thank you so much. We did actually have a survey placed inside of the meeting chat. If you don't mind filling that out for us, it's just a bit of feedback on how I performed in today's session. We do appreciate that. It helps us get better at our sessions for the future. But that being said, we are a couple minutes over time. I do want to be respectful. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll go ahead and conclude here and have a great day.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you. And I think everybody signed our